Students, we will still continue with the transfer of heat, different forms of transfer of heat. If you can recall, the first one, it is about conduction. In case of conduction, no movement of particles of that medium takes place, so it takes place in solid. The second one, in the previous videos we have discussed about the convection, the second form or the second way. Since in case of convection, the actual movement of the particles of that medium takes place, so it takes place in case of liquid or gases. The third one, today we'll study about the radiation, and this takes place in vacuum. Of course, it is not always that it takes place in vacuum. If some medium like air is there, it also takes place there in air. But in case of radiation, it does not require any medium. In the beginning, if you can recall, if you remember, that the way of passing the book from a teacher's table to the last bench, those three forms, if you remember or if you can recall, that in case of conduction, when that book is passed from one student to the other student, that one is about conduction. The students are not moving, or the particles of that medium is not moving. It just go on passing from one particles to the other particles, or from one student to the other student. That is about conduction. In case of convection, like say if a teacher needs to pass the book, then the teacher himself or herself will move, then go up to the last bench and pass the book. That is just like movement of the particles. That particles of that medium is moving. The actual movement of the particles takes place. In case of radiation, if you can recall, that a teacher can throw the book directly from his place up to the last bench. So this is in case of vacuum. So today we'll study about this radiation. The sunlight or the heat that is coming from the sun and reaching the earth, it is taking place through the radiation, by the way of radiation. So radiation means it is a transfer of heat or heat energy in a vacuum where no medium is there or no particles is involved in the transfer of that heat. The example, as I told you, this is the easiest to remember also, that the sunlight or the heat of the sun that is reaching the earth. Somewhere in the middle there is a vacuum, and it can pass through that vacuum also without the involvement of any particles. So that is radiation. So here we'll be studying about the absorptions of radiant heat. How that heat is absorbed by different surface or different object or different particles. Actually there are two ways. Two ways means it depends on two factors. One, it depends on nature of surface. It depends on nature of surface, and the other one, it depends on the color. If the surface is smooth, then absorptions of that radiant heat is less. If surface is smooth, then absorptions of radiant heat is less. But if surface is rough, then absorptions of radiant heat is more. So absorptions of that radiant heat will depend on the nature of the surface. Since heat transfer from hotter area to the cooler area, so when that heat is transferred on the surface or onto some object, it will depend on these two factors. Then the second one is about the color. Dark color absorbs more heat and lighter color absorbs less heat. like the white color. In case of white color, what it happens, it reflects the maximum amount of heat. But in case of black color, it absorbs the maximum amount of heat. So it will depend on the color also. Next, some applications of the radiation. Some applications of the radiation. Number one, like say during summer or in desert areas, in the Middle East countries where it is very hot, these people tends to wear a lighter color clothes. They prefer to wear lighter color clothes. Or even here in our place during summer when it is very hot, we prefer to wear the lighter color clothes, not the darker color. It is because in case of darker color, it absorbs more heat and we feel more hot. It is because of that we prefer wearing lighter color clothes. The second one is in hot areas, about the coloring of the houses or different houses. If you observe nicely, the color that people use for painting in their house, it is light color. Dark color are generally not used. It is for the same reason, dark color absorbs more heat, light color absorbs less heat. So in hotter area, houses were also painted with lighter color so that it absorbs less heat. Then the third one, it is about the cooking vessels. You can observe like in some even pressure cooker or some pan, that the bottom of that pan or cooker, it is painted with black. It is to absorb the maximum heat. Then the next is about electric room heater. Electric room heater. In case of electric room heater, if you observe it nicely, at the back side, it is in the concave form and it is very smooth. It is very smooth and bright also. Suppose that heater, it is here and then there is a concave surface. Concave means curved inward, like this is called a concave. And when it is heated, what it happens, this heat is reflected back. Because the shining surface of this concave does not absorb, or it absorbs very less, it will reflect maximum amount of heat in all the directions. That is why in that room heater, in the back side, if you observe it nicely, a concave then shining surface is placed in for reflections of maximum amount of heat or to get maximum heat. Okay, this is about the radiation. This is the last portion of this chapter. So you revise it from the first, whatever videos I have already uploaded, that one you study it nicely. Okay.